always fun for me to catch up with the man, Mr. Jamar Lovelace. He's the head football coach at DC Class. 2 games now under the belt, and they've been against some heavy hitters. Talk to me a little bit about Patrick Henry and what stood out.
Wow, a very well coached team. I always have a particular respect for Patrick Henry. I know Coach Fiddler's been around for a long time, and he's one of the few high school coaches that is a former college Division II coach at Danville State. So I mean, I think they're as well coached up as any team is. I think they've had a lot of guys who've been coaching together for a long time. They got some kids at every position. They always have a big, well-coached offensive line. They had a skill player, a wide receiver number 2 that's as fast and good as anybody around, and they're a very good football team. And we didn't play great. I think a lot of that's to their credit. But yeah, very happy to walk away from Roanoke Valley with 2 quality wins.
What was your biggest concern going into PH? And I mean, you mentioned a laundry list there, but was there one that was the biggest concern?
I think for one that, I think we have we got a lot of good guys out wide, and I think we run a lot of 5 wide receiver formations more than most teams. So we see different things, and I think that's always our first thought going into games is, are we going to kind of get what we expect from a defense, or are we going to see something that's kind of cater-made to slowing us down? And I also think with pass protection, that's another concern of ours. Just we see such a gauntlet of different blitzes and pressures and fronts and protecting the quarterback with having 4 or 5 wide receivers on the field is always a concern.
This may be a long-winded question, and I'm not trying to get you into a ranking here, but how long have you been a head coach for now, just in general?
This is year 7 as a head coach.
Okay, so you coached at Fleming, and then you spent some time at Brookville as an assistant. So out of all those, because Brookville people know because obviously it's in the area, but out of all those, is this EC Glass team just as athletic as any other team that you've ever coached?
I think for one that this is one of the deepest groups maybe. I don't know if the top end guy is as good as the top end guy has been, at some of these other places. But I think this has been the biggest group of skilled kids that are pretty athletic, fairly fast, twitchy guys. I think it makes practice very competitive, so we're happy about that, and we're still kind of finding our way. I think we've had a different guy kind of step up each week, and then I think some of the guys who we know can play great and make explosive plays are guys who haven't done, who we haven't, gotten the ball to as much. So, we know that we got some guys that can do it, and we're kind of still finding our way, and we're just trying to get the ball in these guys' hands any way we can.
Yeah, I did a really poor job of setting up that question, by the way. The question I was kind of getting at is, when you have an athletic team, do you worry more about coaching an athletic team? Because I think sometimes athletic teams think they can be, for lack of a better term, out of position, but their athleticism is going to allow them to get back from point A to point B quicker than a non-athletic team. Does that keep you up at night worried?
Yeah, it does. Great question. I do. I think that we've kind of bailed ourselves out of a few situations just strictly based on athleticism. But I also think we talk about all the time just how small our margin for error is. That's at every position. So, yeah, I do think that we know that we can be explosive and make these plays, but we also know that it takes such an extreme focus in order for, these things to go a certain way. And we got to create our own luck. It's not going to just happen, and we're not going to just show up and get it done.
Guess who else can be explosive? GW Danville.
Yeah.
What stands out to you about them?
Man, I think they got pretty much every lineman back that was there last year, so they're good up front. They got one of the shiftiest, most explosive backs, and he's the number 14. He's one of those guys who can make you miss one and take it 80, 70, 90. He's a scary guy. And then they got a 3-year starter quarterback that's been there for a long time, and I think that they're very they run their offense very well. He's obviously got a whole lot of experience, and they're a very good football team.
Is this going to be the game that's closest, like looking in the mirror, to be where your guys' athleticism, Danville's athleticism? Does that make sense?
Yes, it is. I think PH was fairly athletic too.
Sure.
Especially on the back end, and I think GW just looks kind of, I feel like every year GW's got a running back that can take it 80, 90. And every year they got a couple of big guys up front. And every year they got a bunch of DBs that can run around, but I know these guys have played together for a while, and you can tell that they're experienced group.
You're not an old man like me, but the EC Glass GW rivalry used to be a really, really, really big deal. It feels like a little bit of the luster has gone off of it. How do you approach that in terms of, do you like the fact that it's not a super duper huge rivalry, or do you wish it was back to like the way it maybe quote unquote used to be?
I think I always, I think EC Glass and Danville has played over 100 times. You know what I mean? So it's one of the oldest rivalries in the state. And I know we got so many proud EC Glass alum. We talk about just, every championship was kind of won going through GW Danville, whether that was in Lynchburg or in Danville. So I know we respect that. I know they got some coaches over there who, every year we stand at the 50 and respect, another year of these two programs going against each other. And I think that respect kind of brings out the best of us. I think it's a little different with kids nowadays. I think kids in general just, what rivalries are now is not quite what it used to be. I don't know if social media, I don't know what kind of changed that. But it's a different type of feeling, and I don't know if it'll ever get back to that feeling that it used to be years ago. But I do know it's always going to be a game that's going to be circled because it's against our crosstown rivals.
Do you like rivalry games?
I don't really get caught up in that. I think for me it's very, I tell people all the time, even as a coach, whether we win by 5 touchdowns or lose by 5 touchdowns, every weekend looks the same for me. Every Friday night I'm thinking about what that next week needs to look like and what that next team is going to do and what we need to do to stop it. So although I'm grateful and happy for a win, my routine and mindset, is never really different, despite the outcome of a Friday night. So, rivalry or not, it doesn't really change anything for me.
But every Monday through Thursday doesn't look the same when you got a rivalry game on Friday too. Let's be honest.
Very, very much the truth. I always think that before we play Heritage, it's like, all the distraction with doing just all these different things that you never have to do during the week. And I think as a coach, that's always a challenge, is to kind of balance out, the things that you got to do, but also keeping them priorities, the number one thing. And I think just sticking to the routine is the biggest thing. Sometimes rivalries can jump you off of that routine, but we do our best to stay on track, even on a rivalry week.
For people who have never seen you coach, and obviously I would hope a lot of people don't see you in practice as much, what kind of coach is Jamar Lovelace in terms of, do you like challenging your kids? Do you like, patting them on the fanny and saying, good job? I mean, what type of style do you have out of those two?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think we kind of, you learn how to differentiate and meet each kid kind of at their own, for what gets the most out of them. I think we got certain guys who, they like a kick in the tail, when they need to get it going. And then we got other guys who, it's a conversation about what we're seeing and what we need to do. And I think different moments in the game can kind of, bring out those different things too. So, I think I'm trying to be as calm and calculated as possible. I always think that your kids are going to kind of mimic you. And we coach our guys hard, and we're going to coach you hard on Friday night too. But we're also going to keep coaching you. I think that's the one thing that I always want to keep. And I always want to show is that, like, I want to coach guys to the finish, and I want to coach them through every situation. We were down 14 points in the first quarter against PH last week. And again, it wasn't as frustrated as we were. It was still about coaching the next play and coaching the next drive. And, I want to keep coaching guys. So I kind of always focus on kind of reacting less to what just happened, but to keep coaching our guys the same way we do in practice every day.
I don't want to get sappy on you or anything, but there's a thing out there called the 5 love languages, which means you meet kind of each person where they're at in terms of what their love language is. Have kids changed, or do you need to meet each kid where they are, or can you kick everybody in the butt if you want to?
I think we got some things that we're going to hold everybody accountable for the exact same way. But I think for us, it's always about the conversation afterwards. It's always about us talking about accountability and where we stand in accountability and where we might have fell short and how we fix that. And I think that, constant follow-up, constant communication is where you meet those different needs. And I think that's the biggest thing that we spend time doing is, I think that if you're holding kids accountable, it comes with that responsibility. And we really take that part of it seriously. And I think that's kind of where we learn, what the best modes are and how to kick guys. Some guys like a tongue lashing. Some guys will come up and whisper to and say, hey, you're not playing very well right now. We need to do something about it, I think, both of those things can equal the same way and it can look very different.
Well, I'm not saying you read self-help books. That'll be for me. But, does a coach need to be a psychologist in that respect?
Oh, man, I talk about this all the time. I would say if we had a team psychologist, then I think we would play a whole lot better football on a daily basis. So many guys have got so many things going on. And as a coach, I think you catch it all. So sometimes you got to compartmentalize and help yourself. Because you just, you catch all this from all different angles and it's a tough thing to kind of walk kids through. But again, I think that's just as part, that's a part of the responsibility of this thing. And, even when it gets tough, we're still thankful to be in that position.
From an individual perspective, who stood out against PH?
I think, well, we know, I think again, Ace Thornton is a big part of what we do, and we know that. I thought he played very well on defense. He kind of just changes games for us and changes momentum of games. But I think JT Osborne again is just, he's just a dangerous football player. He got an interception and ran it back for a touchdown. It got called back on a penalty, but that was a big momentum shift. He ran a punt back into the 2-yard line. He made a couple tackles that, would have maybe touchdowns. He guarded the other team's best receivers. So he's just one of those guys that does a whole lot for us. And sometimes it shows up in the stat book, but I know he jumps out on film, and he's just done a lot for us.
Keys to the game: offense, defense, special teams. Give me one each that gives you guys one more point than Danville.
I think on offense that we're going to have the ability to utilize some matchups that we like, and I think that's always our thing on offense, is kind of finding the matchup that we like. And for us, it's kind of like is our third and fourth and fifth better than your third, fourth, and fifth? And I think figuring that match out is going to be battle is going to be the key on offense. On defense, it's just making tackles. When 14 has the ball and when 5 has the ball, it's going to be, we're going to tackle it for a minimum gain on a bad play, or a bad play is going to turn into points. So being able to pursue on the second level, third level, and really corral these guys is going to be huge, as well as forcing turnovers. We've done a good job of doing that. 5 turnovers on the year. I think that if we can be positive in the turnover battle, then we're going to win on the defensive side. And then on special teams, it's just, changing the game. Last week we had a punt return that was inside the 5-yard line. We did some good things in the punt game. I think we had a punt that ended up being over 60 yards after the bounce. So even if it's just flip the field position, we got to win the special teams battle. We always, talk about dominating the kicking game, DKG, dominating the kicking game. And we want to do that. I think it helps us out in the long run, and that's what's going to bring us on top.
Maybe a stupid question real quick in closing. Do you know what you have on special teams yet? Because we talked about it earlier in the year. You might not know until, week 4 or 5 or so on. Do you know right now?
I still don't think we know. I think the fact that we've been in 2 very close games has helped us. But I still think it's a figuring out process as you go. I just know that, it takes about 4 weeks, before you really start, getting your special teams into game shape and understanding the game speed and situation. We got some pretty good kickers who've been playing for a while now, and I think that kind of helps us. But I still think it's a catch-up process for the first couple of weeks of the season.